Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on the 28th of August 2021 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And again I urge you to visit Kevin's YouTube site to look at the docu-series, as he calls it, which is probably over 70 different interviews now with different people who are channelers who are in contact with various different aspects of the greater reality. Of course, use your intuition. There's lots of stuff there. There's probably 70 hours plus of viewing there, but I would look at what's there and use your intuition as to which of these particular individuals, me included because I'm there, you're drawn to, and make your own decisions based upon your own feelings. It's worthwhile doing. There's lots of different, shall we say, individuals connecting in different ways and at different levels. It's a perfect way to get a broad brushstroke of that which is being accessed by people whilst incarnate. Very good. Okay, so let's have a look at today's agenda. And the first talk is by me, which is about why do some people get healed, why others don't. And then there's a meditation after the questions and answers, of which I've got actually quite a few, not as many as I have previously, but enough high quality ones to make a worthwhile question and answer session. So the meditation though is mastering fear. In fact, it's a bit more than that, because I'm going to add another meditation to it as well, almost directly afterwards, about how to rid oneself of astral entities that are taking your energy. So it's not actually a healing as such, but it's giving you the idea of how to work with yourself. It's not going to be creating a psychic shield, but it's giving you the opportunity to work with yourself so that you can basically make yourself, shall we say, Teflon? Let's work, and repulsive to these entities. Okay. So, why do some people get healed while others don't? Well, there's a number of different reasons for this, and a number of different individuals who are healers will tell you that there are people who aren't supposed to get healed, and there are people who are supposed to experience that which is part of their experience, that whether it's pain, disability, mental problems. It's all to do with what their particular life plan is. So people who get healed for a number of different reasons. One, they are supposed to get healed. That's it's a pretty good catch-all response, isn't it? But really their life planning includes them experiencing the experience, whether it's for instance the pain associated with breaking parts of the body in an accident, or experiencing things like cancers, brain tumours, kidneys that start to fail, livers that start to fail, broken bones, etc. And experience them in quite a profound way, and then come out the other side. And there's people who have healed themselves. They fully believe that they can heal themselves, and they go through a strict regime, which is basically the sort of regime you'd expect for somebody who's working in a very low frequency environment, to create the condition where they know they're going to be healed. And these people, they will use various different dietary conditions, various different meditative conditions, various different fitness regimes to support their, I'm not going to say belief system, but their experiential knowledge system that they are going to be healed. So these people could also be healed by somebody else. And these are the people who experience something, but know unequivocally somewhere within them that they are going to be healed, because they've experienced what they need to experience, and it's time for them to move on. So whether they work on themselves or whether they ask somebody else to work on them, whether it's traditional medicine, surgery, or whether it's Chinese medicine or herbal medicine or homeopathic medicine or energy healing of some sort, they know they are going to get healed. So those people will get healed. On the other side, there are people who like being ill. Okay, so they like to be healed because it creates an attention for them. So they like to be attention seeking. They need to be told that that they're okay, that people love them, and people come along and help them. So in some instances, people don't want to get fit and well and healthy because they get the attention. They get the attention from others who feel sorry for them, for instance, which is basically a form of coercion. If you think about it, they're coercing us into working for them, or giving them attention, or being there for them, when really they don't. They're just basically using it as a means to get to be cared for, to be provided for, but get attention above and beyond that which they would normally get in the environment or circumstances that they exist within, and those individuals within the environment and the circumstances that are in and around and working with them. The third way is if basically there is a life plan which suggests that a person is going to use a particular illness, or an accident, or a disease that as a termination juncture. So that means that they are going to leave this particular incarnation in this way, and part of the way is to experience some form of experience which could be profound. For instance, if you have an illness that is, shall we say, chronic and lasts a long time, then part of the departure process, or part of the determination juncture, includes a lot of potentially high level evolutionary progression associated with that. I mean, people who have brain tumours for 8, 9, 10 years, they know that they are limited in terms of their longevity. They're not going to live a long life. People with cancers who, the cancer is eradicated, it's dealt with by surgery, it's dealt with by chemotherapy, it's dealt with by radiotherapy, but it keeps coming back. That they keep going through this loop of fear, despair, medication, hope, and then fear, then surprise, fear, despair, medication, hope. So, and they're supposed to experience these things to accelerate their own evolutionary progression whilst they're heading towards their termination point. Then there's others who are suddenly find themselves dead, so to speak. They wake up in the energetic. But those individuals, they usually didn't know that they were ill, or they've had a body condition, a physical bodily condition, such as blood pressure or something, that suddenly turns into an unforeseen heart attack, which moves them out of this particular environment and into the energetic environment where they normally belong. So you've got 3 points there. One is basically people like to be ill because these are people who generally start to create things like allergies, for example. I mean, people who are attention seeking and want to be ill and get allergies, they use their allergies as a form of, attracting people to give them sympathy. So it's another form of taking energy as well as being coercive. And there are those who are supposed to be healed because it's part of their experiential condition, and there are those who, no matter what you will do, they won't be healed because they are supposed to go at a certain time. And some of these people who are supposed to go at a certain time, it may well be that the healer heals that particular patient. The disease is eradicated, or the illness is eradicated, the pain is eradicated as a function of the energy healing, or the herbal therapy, or the homeopathic therapy, or any other form of therapy, whether it's Western medicine, surgical procedures, remedial therapy, and or esoteric systems, including energy healing. But that's successful. But then they get something else. So it's really a case of they have chosen a time to go, and there is no way that they're not going to go then, because that's part of the overall plan. And the only reason why they're sticking around or surviving is because the ego wants to survive as long as possible. Don't forget that the ego is this temporary personality that's created as a function of incarnation, where we're almost totally cut off from our true energetic self because of the severe lack of communicative bandwidth, or communicative and functional bandwidth, as a result of coming down the low frequencies. So again, the ego although it's useful sometimes, it helps us to preserve our incarnate human vehicle and other incarnate vehicles within the physical universe, is working to try to perpetuate us. Therefore we get better, and then the life plan kicks in, and then we start to go ill in a different direction, or cancers come back, or brain tumours start to grow again. All of these different things, or a major organ starts to fail instead of what was there before. So these are the three reasons why. One reason why people get healed, but two of the reasons why they don't get healed, because it's part of the plan, or they're using it as a form of attention seeking. Okay, so let's have a look at the questions then. And I think actually, although there's not so many this time, I have to say they're really good questions, and I think they're very good because some of these questions are things that people should know about, or would ask but haven't done, or are asking deeper detail on the information that they already know. So the first one is by AB, and he said, why does the aspect accrue karma for what the ego does? Isn't that like arresting the homeowner for watching the TV show about a murderer? Yeah, well, basically, the ego is us, is our creation. We very slowly create this temporary personality as a function of our almost total reduction in communicative and functional bandwidth, which means that we start to associate ourselves with our incarnate human vehicle. So the ego does in fact do things. We do things with this personality that is created because we don't get access to our true personality, that which is what we really are when we are in the energies in and around our true energetic self in various different forms of communion. So it's not a function of why do we accrue things because of our ego. The ego is us anyway. It's just that when we go back into the energetic, the ego becomes absorbed and part of the overall personality of what we are. Okay, so if you think about it, I mean, how would we, if we're in a different environment, change? For instance, if we were moved countries totally, and the language that we were exposed to was something we had no experience of at all, either reading or writing, and the culture was the same, then we would change accordingly. We would eventually become fluent in the language for both a written and a spoken way, and we would also fit in with the local culture within the environment that's there, and so we would change our personality accordingly. Not in totality, but we would change accordingly because of our new situation. And that's the same thing. So what happens to us when we're here? There's this little bit of our overall sentience which is used together with some energy to animate the human form, so it can experience, learn, and evolve by interacting with the environment and the circumstances and those other incarnate individuals who are also within the environment and experiencing similar or same or interactive interactions with us. Okay. Next one is sort of linked to the first one. It says, how does an aspect recognise itself and other aspects in the energetic if it has no ego? Does the I feeling, the recognition of self, continue after the ego's existence? How, if so, why is it not there when we are born? Well, basically, it's a bit difficult to explain, but if you think about when we're born, there's a very small part of us which is projected from us, so that what we really are is our true energetic self, and that bit which is projected out and incarnated and it enters into the incarnation process is a mere fraction. It's usually around 2.5% of the overall sentience of our true energetic self, and when it's sort of isolated, it's within the lower frequencies, and it experiences isolation because the frequencies are so low that the communicative bandwidth we have doesn't work anymore. And think of it in these terms. It's a bit like us normally being able to access everything on the internet in one go. access everything and understand everything in one go. Not like we do now, which is by using a search engine and getting a whole bunch of different answers up and we choose one. I'm talking about understanding everything in one go, down to being able to communicate by carrier pigeon. That's the difference in communicative functionality we have. And that level of communicative function that we normally have with our trinetic self means that that small part of the sentience, which is individualized from the majority of our sentience, what's left is, a minimum of 70% of what is normally there, starts to create this association with the environment it's in, the human body. But when it goes back, that which it is the communicative bandwidth starts to increase dramatically as we leave the body, and we start to realise that the overall personality, which is almost like a signature of the sentience, the quality of sentience, and the evolutionary content associated with the experiential content that's been accrued over the period that it's been in existence or individualized from source, starts to come back into it. So the personality that's created, the ego, is literally like a droplet of water in the ocean, and so it becomes absorbed and integrated with and part of the overall quality of sentience, the overall evolution level. And it's that quality of sentience and evolution level that is us. That's how we know other entities as well within the multiversal environment, or within the normal energetic environment that we exist within. We know each other by our evolutionary progression and the quality of our sentience. Okay, so that's how, of course, there's also the experiential content that we accrue as well. That's also part of that. Good. Right, next question's from DC. Okay, there's a bunch of questions here which are along a similar line, I've got to say. First one is, our true energetic self has 12 aspects that can be projected into the physical. Does that mean our true energetic self is limited to 12 aspects? When meditating and thinking about this question, it seems that there are many, many more aspects contained within the test. However, only 12 as a maximum are usually projected into physical. How many aspects are contained within the test? How are they selected for embodiment, and are the personalities of the aspects set, or do they adjust, change and or modified by their experiences? Do all aspects of the test have about the same number of embodiments? Are all tests equal in ability to perform the mapping functions for the source and the origin? In other words, are some more efficient and effective than other tests? The answer to that is yes. What kinds of communications happen between the source and the test? Is there a hierarchy of tests? Do aspects ever switch between the tests? Do aspects ever switch between tests? And are there specialists among the tests? Right, going from the bottom upwards, in effect, there are times when an aspect does move from one test to another. That happens, and it's specifically prevalent in one of the other source entities. If you read this Beyond the Source books, and I can't remember which particular source entity it is, there is one where they do move from test to test as a function of their own evolutionary progression. So that does happen. From our perspective, we don't as such. We tend to stay with our own tests. Okay. The only time an aspect might move from a test into another test or create another test is like when, for instance, animal true energetic selves, the tests, progress beyond the animal level of sentience because they've evolved over a period and enter into the next genre of sentience, which gives them sort of human state, the same quality of sentience, albeit at the very, very bottom rung, that is associated with what we call the human level of test. So that's the only way that a particular aspect or aspects can move from one test to another test or create another test. There are normally a maximum of 12 aspects projected from any one test, and are normally the possibility of a maximum of 12 shards projected from any aspect. So therefore we have 12 times 12, which is 144 potential projections of sentience from the test in totality. And that maximum projection of sentience from the test is 30%, leaving 70% still in the energetic. But there are times, specifically with aspects that are almost not the mainstream aspects. And by mainstream aspects, I mean the mainstream ones are the ones that are always entering into various different parts of the multiverse to experience, learn and evolve on behalf of the test. There are always the odd one or two, or maybe more, that are within the true energetic self, that are sometimes created a hybrid of two aspects. For example, the experiences of two aspects. So the true energetic self can create a hybrid or a temporary condition, which can also be revisited later if necessary, to experience, learn, and evolve in a different way. So there are usually a number of different, shall we say, combinations of sentience and energy within the true energetic self that are used to experience various different things in different circumstances and different environments. And so it's quite possible to add up, I don't know, let's say 20 potential aspects that could be projected down into the lower frequencies of the multiverse environment, or in and around the multiverse environment, in the area where the true energetic self resides as a function of its evolution. But there's only a maximum of 12 that can actually be projected. So although there might be think of it like a football match. You can only ever get I think it's 11 on a football pitch per side, but they have substitutes. So think of it like that. The football team has lots more players than they have actually on the field, and that's the same sort of thing. Okay. So very good, and just making sure there's nothing else on that. Oh yes, is there a hierarchy of tests? Only in so much as the evolutionary progression or evolutionary content accrued by any one particular test. Some do it faster than others. Some elect to do it super fast. Some elect to do it slowly and get the details. So their quality of sentience and their quality of evolutionary content is much better than one who has evolved in a fast way, who wouldn't have the quality of sentience, maybe, and the quality of evolution, but they would still achieve the same evolutionary level. So you have to think of it in those particular ways. And are there specialists among the tests? There are. Yeah, we do specialise in certain different ways in which we would evolve, and that's the way and how we interact with the physical universe. For example, I mean, there are tests that prefer to incarnate in certain frequencies, for example, or certain geo-universal locations within the physical universe, rather than being, deciding to incarnate in every possible frequency associated with the physical universe, and in every possible geo-universal location as well. Okay, so that helps that. Also, don't forget, some of these tests don't enter into the evolutionary cycle. They enter into the service environment. So they can be the maintenance entities that maintain the structure of the multiverse for the source, or they can end up being guides and helpers for those who are in the evolutionary cycle as well. So next question is, do all of the curators and special support aspects of a test... I'll say it again. Do all of the creators and special support aspects have a test? In effect, yes, but sometimes the test is that which is working is the test itself. So rather than having an aspect that's working as a curator, it's more than likely that the aspect and the test are one and the same. So there isn't actually an aspect; it is the test working. Although there are a number that have a test, for example. So there are entities that are working as a maintenance entity that are part of a test, but there are those tests that work without projecting any of their own aspects into the service environment, so to speak. And the next part of this question, there's lots of nested questions from DC here. Do these tests only project support aspects? Not necessarily, no. I mean, the as I just explained, basically, the test will project what it needs to project to do what it needs to do. Normally, as a curator, it's just a test working on its own. But they can project aspects if they want to support a function that requires an element of parallel processing, so to speak. Okay, and how are these tests different from our tests? They're not. They're exactly the same. It's just that they're either in the evolutionary cycle, or they're in the service of those in the evolutionary cycle, or the maintenance of the environments that those in the evolutionary cycle use to evolve. Okay. Next one is, as a follow-up question, I once asked, how can I help my brother? And the answer was, you can do nothing to help him. When we are faced with challenges with siblings or close friends, and they seem to be particularly set on their ways of being antagonistic, seemingly cruel and mean to others, not helping when it seems that they could help instead of hurt, what are some strategies or ways to properly work with these challenging situations? How could we think about this? It's a little bit like the brother or the sister who is very poor at managing their own finances. They'll always spend tomorrow's money yesterday, for example, or they will want to go and drink so much alcohol they become paralytic or incapable of controlling themselves, making the energy so low frequency that the soul has to get out, or the aspect has to get out, and therefore the aspects who are still wanting to be incarnate can sneak into the body for a period to experience incarnation. And that's when you get total changes in personality, when somebody's imbibed far too much alcohol. All we can do is help in a way which is not going to support the habits, or not going to support the personality trait. But we can't tell them what to do. They have their own life plan, which they are following, and sometimes that life plan is to experience significant levels of so-called failure, or things that are created by themselves that cause problems in terms of how they can experience, learn and evolve. And some of them are, shall we say, very unevolved souls, and therefore aren't capable of thinking, behaving and acting in a high frequency way. And so they don't know how to respond, they don't know how to be loving and caring and of service to others. So the only way we can respond is by being there for them in a way that doesn't support their problems. But what it does is supports their making sure they got a roof over their heads if we can, or making sure that they are sustained in terms of they've got food as well. You can't support a gambling habit, for instance. You can't support a drinking problem or a drug problem. You can't provide funding for that. And if they are bent on destroying themselves, then you can only help them when they ask you for help, but not in a way that would support their continued methods of destroying themselves. It's very difficult. We're not responsible for them; they're responsible for them. So we although we can help, we're not responsible for their success in terms of or the success of our help. It's a real concern. There are lots of people who have tried to help their siblings or family members or even friends, and they've failed, and they've put themselves at risk as well. And it's a very difficult situation to be in, and it's not a nice situation to be in. But at the end of the day, you can only do what you can do for them. That is in keeping with your knowledge system or your belief system. Being of service when you can, in a way which doesn't support their problems. That's their continuation or their spiral that keeps bringing them back into experiencing, learning and evolving that which is destroying them. Okay, very good question. I like that, but it is difficult, and all you can do is just be there for them and provide the very basics. Think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food, warmth and shelter. provision for the self is the most basic thing you can do for them. But you can't support anything else. Okay. Because they'll get dependent upon you. When somebody becomes dependent upon you, then you become part of their cycle. And really we don't want to do that. We can't make or create a condition where they're dependent upon us to perpetuate their cycle. Okay, very good question, thank you. Next question is from US. The question is this: you said that the ego dissolves after we die, but I'm reading from Gordon Finn's book, where he interviews dead celebrities in the afterlife. They seem to retain their human personality, albeit after some kind of life review. Even years or decades after their death, they seem to engage in similar activities, i.e., for example, composing music, writing, painting, etc., that which they did on Earth. What's going on? Or what part of their soul is left behind to engage with astral projectors like Gordon? Is their soul still astral, or is a personality part projected from their higher self for those who want to interact with them on the astral level? Please explain. And actually this is interesting because the next question from FN is almost the same question. So I'm going to read that out as well and explain and answer it all in one go. So the next one is William Bullman, Tom Campbell and Tuesday Lobsang Rampa and a few other authors speak about consensus realities when they travel to different planes of astral existence. It seems that there are millions of consensus reality cities. People of same faith or ideology live together, go to the same church or mosque, that they think that they're in heaven. Can you describe these consensus realities on the astral plane? How long do people remain there? Why are there so many consensus realities? How does the test or projected aspect operate when after transition one remains in these astral levels? After transition, do we always travel to a consensus reality? What is the purpose of life on the astral plane? Okay, these two questions are the same thing but said in a slightly different way. Basically, the self-realized aspect will not go to or not create a reality around themselves that supports where they think they are or where they think they're going to. So, for instance, let's say Paramahansa Yogananda would have gone straight back into communion with its true energetic self, and so would Jesus, so would Muhammad, so would the Buddha, for example. They would bypass all of this stuff because it's not necessary. They know who and what they are, and they simply regain their memory set and the quality of sentience associated with being part of the test, even though they may still be projected from the test whilst they're in the energetic, pre, during and post the review of the incarnation, which involves not just the soul but also the guide and helpers. There are those souls who don't recognise that they've moved beyond the gross physical, that they feel that they are still incarnate. They don't know that the body's demised, they don't know about incarnation, but they just feel that they are still in existence. And some of these entities stick around the planet in the lowest frequencies possible before they need to incarnate. So the lowest frequencies would be the lower astral levels, which are the 4th and 5th frequency level. So and we sometimes see those as ghosts. Sensitive individuals can see them with their spiritual or third eye. So those individuals stick around, and we sometimes experience poltergeist activity, so to speak, the movement of objects, as a function of them trying to get our attention that they're still around. So this is one where the reality is still here. I mean, we all create this overall reality we call the physical universe in all of its intricacies. So we collectively work with that. But there are those that they do recognise that they are disincarnate, but they have taken a belief system with them, such as they're going to go to heaven, they're going to meet all of the different angels, and they're going to look like human beings with wings. So that's what they project. That's their expectation. So their expectation is to go into these different levels, and even yogis can be in this particular location. I mean, if you read the autobiography of Yogi, there's a part in there where Paramahansa Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, visits Yogananda, and a similar thing happens with the Lama that was associated with Lobsang Rampa, where they are in an environment that they expected to go to. I think the Lama Mingyar Dungdip was the one that was looking after or taught or mentored Lobsang Rampa, and Sri Yukteswar mentored and taught Yogananda. But both of them came from an astral level. Both of them were working there because they were like indoctrinated, or they were told so often that this is where they would go to, that's what they create. So, well, even though they're self-realized individuals, the level of self-realization is limited to the understanding surrounding the methods of education that were used to create the level of self-realization. So people like them and other people who become disincarnate because the body is demised, they go into the energetic, but they project around themselves an environment which supports what they expect to be in when their physical form dies. Now, this projection can manifest in two ways, or more than two ways actually. One is it's particularly personal, and that means that the soul can even create individuals within that reality. So they can create landscapes, they can create buildings, they can create individuals that they interact with. They are so convinced that they are where they are, so they've projected this. The second one is that really, and there's various different levels of this of course, that other individuals support or have the same expectation. And so that projection gets augmented by the sentience of another soul who expects to see, nirvana, utopia, heaven, or the astral worlds, for example. And so you start to get a reality that could potentially start with one disincarnate individual who is expecting to see various different characters from history, for example, up to and including their family members, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, etc., etc. They're there, because they create them. And they can create literally whole cities, even planets, around themselves to support that which they expected to see, because that's what they've totally believed would happen, because somebody of authority has told them that's what happens. So rather than moving through into the plain basics of energetic existence, they become part of a collective function to experience a certain environment in a certain way. And so you get lots of these pockets or bubbles of environments that are created by souls who are supporting each other in the perpetuation of this consensus reality or collective reality, which is the same as them wanting to interact with each other on the astral level. So you can see the two questions here overlink with each other quite nicely. So celebrities or famous individuals continue to do that because they expect to be able to be in a heaven where they're doing what they love doing, and that's it. I mean, if somebody, bizarrely enough, if somebody was told often enough by an authority that they truly trusted that they're going to end up being a cherub on a big white cloud with a harp and a bow and arrow, then that's what they would create, and that's what happens. We tend to be programmed by those individuals around us who we trust because they're authoritative, and they have enough understanding to create a level of not just believability but of truth, but in a way which is limited to certain things. And so we work with that. So rather than being exposed to the greater reality as it is, we create an environment around us, and we collectively work with it together. If there's a number of us want to experience the same thing or expect to experience the same thing, that is particularly human and earth-like. So this is what's happening with these two questions. There's people who are experiencing the earth because they feel they're going to experience things, and those individuals who support that belief system around them. So they create their own heaven in the astral levels. They don't move on. And that's the same with these consensus realities. They're people who want to who are expecting to experience certain things, and they don't move on. Now, eventually, the guide and helpers will support them. They'll eventually make them realise that the reality isn't exactly what the reality is, and they do eventually get extracted from it, and the reality does eventually dissolve, and all of those souls that are in the realities do start to move back up the frequencies properly and reintegrate into communion with their true energetic self. And there's another version of it as well, something called limbo, where souls basically just stay unconscious, so to speak, because they expect nothing. They expect nothingness. And there are those that expect to go into a grey consciousness or a black consciousness, where they're just there. And again, that's the same sort of thing. So souls that are in this grey limbo or this dark consciousness or pure white consciousness but don't do anything, again, their guide and helpers do work with lots of certain functions that they know will eventually get the soul to wake up properly and become reintegrated with the energies in the way that they normally are. Okay, so those questions are very good actually, and the best thing to do is to realise one thing: we are energy, we are sentient energy, and we are existing in a frequential, sub-dimensional, full-dimensional environment within a larger entity, and therefore we are part of it. We are smaller, individualised units of sentience. We are beyond that which is supposedly the projections or that creates the Earth-like environment. We can't possibly understand what it is while we're here, because we've chosen to adopt or to adapt to our environment as a function of the ego being created and the lack of communicative bandwidth with who and what we are normally. So we have to be totally expansive in our expectations and our thought process, and recognise that anything that appears to be human when the physical form is demised is an indication that we've moved into what our potential underlying expectation is, and or that we've slipped into the expectations of somebody else that supports our expectations, and therefore moved into a consensus reality or an environment where we've projected around us an environment with circumstances and individuals within that environment based on what we expect us to experience. Okay, so if you suddenly find that you're in one of these when your body's demised, just try to remember that this isn't what you really are, and this is just something that you've created, and you need to move out of it. And so when that happens, broadcast your desire for your guide and helpers to extract you from it, and you'll be back where you should be, in the environment that you should be, interacting with your true energetic self and source in the way you should be. Okay, right, let's go and look at the meditations we've got, and we've got plenty of time for these, so that's good. The first one is Mastering Fear, and we're going to go from one meditation straight into the next, so we won't sort of come back into the room and open our eyes, etc., etc. We'll stay in the meditative state whilst we're doing these two meditations. Okay, the first one is Mastering Fear, the second one is Removing Astral Entities from Us. Okay, so you can achieve your preferred meditative posture, which can be full lotus, half lotus, sitting cross-legged. If you're Zen, you sit kneeling, or if you're a Western yogi, you can sit in a straight-backed chair with your feet flat on the ground, your back straight, your neck straight, your palms uppermost on your upper thighs in the area where the legs meet the lower body, and your closed eye vision is gently focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. Okay. And I want you to just now relax. And just recognize that your consciousness, your sentience, consciousness is a function of sentience, by the way, isn't just part of the gross physical form that you are currently occupying, this motor car, so to speak, this vehicle that you're using to experience a low frequency environment in the way it is supposed to be experienced, as a low frequency, dense, gross physical item. And this item is able to navigate around the environment, interact with it and others in the same state, and create within it as well. Recognize that this is a temporary condition that you enter into every now and then. It's a bit like going diving once a week, or scuba diving once a week, or having a bath once a week. Every now and then you go into a low frequency environment and you come out when you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. You are not the vehicle that you're occupying, just as you're not the motor car that you occupy when you leave the house in the morning to go to work. You get into your car, you travel to work, and then you get out of your car when you arrive at work. It's in the same way that you're not the motor car, you are not your body. Everything that's happening is a creation that's supported by thousands of other souls aspects, creating a very complex, interactive, temporary, ever metamorphosizing reality. As another soul supports our reality, we support their reality to create an overall reality. So when you realize that really everything that happens around us is a temporary condition based upon us entering into this environment, it's a bit like us going to the theatre or watching television. If we go to the theatre, we interact with it a bit more. Or even the cinema, we interact with it a bit more. We go to the cinema, we go to the theatre, we interact with other individuals in the cinema and in the auditorium of the theatre. If we're at home, we're a bit more a bit more insular, a bit more isolated. But in all these conditions, we are observing us, observing what's going on in the theatre, in the cinema, on the television. From a higher frequential perspective, we can observe us now. We are not the human body. We are sentience and energy, which is using the human body to navigate around a low frequency environment we call the physical universe. So when you start to understand that this is all temporary, this is like an interactive game, so to speak, or an interactive experience, to give it a more higher or esoteric name, then you start to realize that we're actually not part of it. And when you start to realise that you're actually not part of it, you start to realise that that which you fear or feared when you were in the immersed state of being in this environment, in the circumstances, interacting with those individuals within the circumstances, within the environment, that nothing can hurt you. Nothing can affect you. You're simply doing an interactive game in a frequential environment that is expressively difficult to interact with and work with. But it does give some benefits. It does give us some evolutionary benefits by being here, specifically because it's hard. But again, we recognise that we're not part of it. We're simply interacting with it. We're simply playing a video game on a very interactive level, a very immersive level. And that immersive level allows us to concentrate on it, to focus on it. But the problem with concentrating and focusing on it is that we believe that we're in it. We believe that we are it. But if we can get a chance to step backwards and realise that we're not it, we're just playing our role, we're an actor. Even though we go to the theatre and watch other actors on stage, we're also actors because we are acting as extras. We are acting as the audience. We are acting as the background to other people's interactions, other people's environments, other people's realities. So when you start to feel in this way, be in this way, then again you realise that the human body in this environment is not what we are. And therefore that which exists that we fear doesn't affect us. It can't affect us. We are simply observers, or game players, or actors. We don't fear losing a life in a video game. We may get a little bit annoyed if we're not interacting with it properly and losing the game, but by and large we're not worried. We don't worry about losing some part of the tool set we have in the game. We don't worry if we lose a limb in the game, because we're not the game. We're just playing with the game. And so, looking at this from our perspective as a small individualized unit of sentience and energy incarnate into a low frequency environment, and therefore using a vehicle to be able to interact with it. It's a very complicated vehicle. But that vehicle is what it is. We don't worry about when our cars have an accident or whether they break down. We may be upset, or we may be disappointed, or a bit annoyed because we need to get somewhere. But at the end of the day, the vehicle is a tool. The human body is a tool, along with those other vehicles, bodies, in different frequential environments, in different geo-universal environments within those frequencies. So nothing can actually affect what we really are. An incarnate aspect, an incarnate unit of sentience and energy, using a vehicle to interact with the environment in the way it's supposed to be interacted with. So based upon this knowledge that nothing can hurt us, the true us, what we really are, sentience and energy, why would you fear being here? Why would you fear being in an aeroplane? Why would you fear arachnids, snakes, other animals, birds, the water. Why would you need even worry about things? There is no need to fear that which we are not part of in totality. And so if we don't, so it can't hurt us, so there's no point in fearing it. We are simply the game player, interacting with the game. And when the life ends, when our particular life ends, we go back and we put some more money in the slot and start again. That's a bit like incarnation. We come back, look at what we did wrong or right, or look at how we could improve what we're doing, or not as the case may be, and maybe we'll have another go somewhere else, on a different location, different planet. Or if it's the same planet and the same frequency, in a different circumstance or environment. So when we think in this way, we're above fear, because there was nothing to fear. It's simply an interactive game. Part of this fear is also about how things get attached to us. Sometimes our fear creates the possibility for other entities, some low frequency, low intelligence astral entities that are sometimes created by us, usually by mistake or subconsciously, but sometimes by directive thought processes, or by simple Darwinian evolution of similar or same energies grouping together and eventually gaining some form of intelligence. So these entities can come into our energies, entering past the waste product created by the chakras, energizing the energy templates, which creates an electromagnetic field around us we call the human aura. These entities simply have a level of intelligence, a minor level of consciousness or awareness of self. We are super aware of ourselves in the energetic. We are super conscious. We are polyomniscient, polyomnipresent. We are ultimate creators within that which is a creator itself. Our quality of sentience, associated with the evolutionary content of whom what we are, makes us very powerful, omnipotent, polyomnipotent entities. So these minor units of energy and intelligence are simply like specks of dust on our bodies. They have no place within our energies. We are so significantly above them that there's no way that they can resist us removing them from within and without our energy field, or even on the chakras. We are ultimately significantly more powerful. Simple thought process dissolves them. Even the biggest and most compelling astral entity. So just visualize them all leaving you. Visualize them being sucked off you by a very large vacuum cleaner. All you're doing is sucking up the dust from around you. Sometimes it's just sticky, low frequency energy. Sometimes they've got a bit more energy, it looks a bit amoeba-like. Sometimes the energy's got a bit of intelligence and starts to create a form factor that is associated with what it wants to do and how it wants to interact with and get energy for itself from you. And sometimes they create images based upon our fears. This is before the meditation we've done just. So that when we see things we don't like, we turn away. So we don't see them anymore, or we don't perceive them anymore. So knowing that you're ultimately the most powerful level of sentience within the multiverse, even though you are projecting from a much bigger part of the sentience, these little simply intelligent units of energy are easily brushed away, like brushing dust off your collar, off your jacket. So just visualize you using a vacuum cleaner and cleaning up all of these little bits of low frequency, these astral entities that have decided to attach themselves to various different parts of your auric layers, or even the chakras, or any of the energy templates, by just visualizing them or using your mentally spoken word to achieve the same thing. And that means describing what you're doing. So I am vacuuming up all of these little entities that I'm finding around me. One's on my head, one's on my shoulder, one's on my middle to lower back. Those are the words you'll use, and just suck them off. And then take that vacuum cleaner and find a recycling bin. Ask the recycling bin to recycle the energies associated with the vacuum cleaner and the energies and the level of intelligence associated with that energy, and then it's reabsorbed into source. Use the vacuum cleaner to make yourself clear of entities. Remove them from your auric layers, remove them from your energy templates, remove them from your chakras. It's as simple as that. Don't doubt yourself. Don't think I can't do it. Just do it. They may also give you little bits of feeling of doubt to protect themselves. All you need to know is you're more powerful than anything. You're the top of the food chain, top of the evolutionary ladder. You can do anything you want. And so removing these astral entities should be an easy function of your desire, thought, intention and action to remove them. Have no fear. You are powerful. You exist perpetually. Nothing is bigger than you. Nothing, even combined with thousands of others, is enough to harm you. There are not enough astral entities within and without the lower astral, upper lower astral, lower upper astral and the upper astral that you cannot dissolve and recycle back to source entity energy. You can do this all within a blink of an eye, because you're omnipresent and omniscient and omniscient. You are the ultimate being, the ultimate entity, the ultimate sentience, and ultimately powerful. So just brush them off like you brush dust off your clothes or flies off one of your arms or your back. And it's as simple as that. Try it. go over these 2 meditations regularly. Do them daily over a week, and then follow through with them, and then just meditate and check yourself, and you'll find that your fear has been mastered. You no longer fear anything, and you'll also find that there are no parasites attached to you, and that you are feeling very good because no one's taking your energy. You can walk tall. You have no hitchhikers. Okay, so slowly come back into the room. Slowly open your eyes, and you can take a drink of water if you have some there. That's the end of this Satsanga, this August Satsanga. And interestingly enough, there's been a number of people asking the question over the years, and it's sort of come to the right time now, so to speak, where I'm going to potentially return back to the old way of doing the Satsanga, where I'm going to hold it as a video-based thing. So in January, I'm going to be inviting people to join via Zoom, and I think we're going to be limited to about 40 minutes and probably 100 people, which is about right. And there won't be any verbal interaction. I'll be able to see you all and you'll be able to see me, and we'll just deal with the questions that are given to us via the Zoom chat system. So we'll deal with the questions there and then. I'll probably do a very short lecture, just to do over 5 or 10 minutes, and then we can deal with the questions and answers as they come on a first come first served basis via the Zoom chat. And you can ask your questions there and then via Zoom chat, so prepare them ahead of time. So I shall remind people as we get closer and closer and closer to it, so that you know when it's going to happen, and I'll also share the Zoom link as well for people to dial in. Okay, so thank you very much for listening and participating and taking part, listening to the questions and answers, the lecture at the start, and also the meditations at the end. And looking forward to seeing you in September. Namaste to you all. Did you see the aliens in Crete?